Thanks for joining us for the Long Island Sound Podcast. Each week we explore new music and dive deeper with the artists and their stories behind the music. Please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you stream this podcast. Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
I was so stoked to finally get Steve Robinson on the Long Island Sound Podcast, and I'm telling you, you're really going to enjoy. What an intriguing guy. Life experiences like I've never seen. So diverse. A carpenter, an English teacher, fisherman, truck driver, landscape foreman. I think he's had every job that anybody on Long Island might have. You name it, and he's poured that into his love of music in the style of Americana, old-time jazz, soul, rock, pop, and country. You name it. Hey, let's take a listen to his song, Little Rock and Roller. Hey, I'm really excited today with my guest. Steve Robinson is a native Long Islander, and I want to read his bio. He's engaged. His engaging songs are informed by his very life experiences and I can relate to the many positions: carpenter, English teacher, fisherman, truck driver, landscape foreman, air traffic controller, union rep, computer program, and so many more lifelong experiences. And I'm going to have a beer with Steve because I think he rallies me when it comes to having different jobs. Self-taught guitarist, just like me. Amazing. Not as good. I'm not as good as him, obviously, with the unique fingerstyle, a laid-back style. And what I like of listening to Steve's music, and I've done my homework, he's not tied to one genre, which I think is really great. I'll leave it at that. Hey, Steve Robinson, welcome to the Long Island Sound Podcast. Good to have you.
Steve, it's great. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we met briefly at one of our showcases, and you know what carries a lot of weight with me is when I've met another musician, another artist who says, "Oh, you got to have Steve Robinson. He's a great songwriter," and that was from Mike Nugent.
Yeah.
And when Mike Nugent says you're really good, it carries a lot of weight with me. So I'm so happy to have you on the program, you know?
Yeah, well, Mike is one of the premier guys on Long Island, I think. He's a great guitar player. He plays tastefully. He can rock out when he needs to, and he can lay back and just put tasteful licks in when he's behind somebody. He's not a show-off. He's just really good.
Yeah, I think what's nice about Mike, he plays to the song. You know, he really does. And that's... Yeah, it takes a lot of talent to do that, and a lot of nuance, and yeah, I'm sure when Mike listens to this, he'll appreciate that as well. Well, let's talk about. So you're self-taught. I was somewhat self-taught, and I need more teaching. So when did it begin with you? Did it start with the guitar? Did it start early or later in life? Where did
Actually,
it begin for you, Steve?
it started when I was in high school. I was a member of a little folk group, but I was the vocalist. I didn't play any instruments at the time. I had a friend of mine, Bobby Cavanaugh, and then now we're talking about sophomore, junior year in high school back in the early 60s.
Okay.
Who was playing things like Lead Belly's Fannin Street on a 12-string guitar. The guy was just amazing. And we had another gentleman, Mike Malone, who became an admiral. He was actually the captain of the Enterprise, the aircraft carrier at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he passed away recently, but he was the other guy. And we actually appeared on radio early on. We did they had a little outdoor festival thing going on, and I think it was WBAB back in the early days that let us do a couple of tunes on the radio. But I also, I picked up guitar later on in high school. My father wanted my mother to. My father plays the banjo and harmonica, so I have a musical background. He wanted my mom to get involved, so he bought a little Sears Silvertone guitar, and they went to guitar lessons. I think they went 2 or 3 times, and that was it. And I picked it up at that point, and I just started trying to teach myself some easy folk songs.
So how was mom? Was mom into doing it?
Mom wasn't so much into the instrumentation, but she was very influential on my listening. When I was a kid back in the early 50s, my mother was a big listener of Top 40 radio. Mm-hmm. She had her favorite artists, Joe Stafford, Kay Starr, Dick Haymes. She wasn't such a big Sinatra fan, but she liked Billie Holiday, and so a lot of the music. And at the time, I listened. I really didn't appreciate the music. I came to appreciate it much more later on.
Right.
But also, both sides of my family are Irish. My mother was born in Limerick, came over as a kid. My father's family was all from Belfast. So I was just inundated with Irish music also from my childhood. And my father's side of the family, everybody would have a party. Everybody would sing a song. It didn't make any difference if you were 85 years old and you could barely croak out the tune, but you got to sing your song, and everybody said, "Grand, Patty Barron, grand, grand." My mother's side of the family were all dancers. So they would, when they came over, the furniture went to the walls. The Jimmy Shand Orchestra records would go on, and they'd do set dancing. So I had music through my entire life.
You know what's so interesting about that to me, particularly in the days pre-internet, is how culturally Irish, the singing and playing in the pubs is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking my own, Polish heritage when you mentioned dancing. When we had parties, and I had cousins who were phenomenal Polish dancers, like, the real the real swinging stuff. And
Yeah.
they were athletic. It was unbelievable. And they would get egged on to, the records would go on, and we'd go to a lot of dances. It was so much fun socially to
Yeah.
do that. And it's interesting now with the newer generation, just my opinion. I get my soapbox every once in a while, so I'm going to caution the audience now, is this re-socialization of the public, to get off the screens and have a good time and face-to-face and enjoy each other's company. That was something that you really looked forward to in the old days. I remember the backyard parties and playing the records, and man, it's so indelved in my brain of what a good time it was and how you reminisce about that. So you're very fortunate that you had a musical family and with that heritage.
One of my cousins ended up actually dancing in Riverdance troupe. So
really,
she was she was top notch, and
Nice,
she had a
nice.
dancing school upstate for many years too, an Irish dance school.
Interesting. Now, the other thing you mentioned, you were on the local radio, and that almost seems like a time gone by from certain things with a lot of pre-programming and, hey, this is, the song list, the playlists are going out, and that's it, But to have that opportunity, so you grew up locally on Long Island, I would think, or
Well, yeah, I mean, we moved. My folks. I'm actually living in the house that my folks bought in 1952. I bought it from them in '86, but I was originally raised for the first 4 years in the Bronx.
Okay.
They came to Long Island in 1952, and except for maybe 5 years out of state after I got married, and I worked as air traffic controller in Virginia and Pennsylvania. I came back, bought the house from them, and I've lived here ever since.
Yeah, from what I recall, there's a section of the Bronx back in the day. It was a big Irish enclave in the Bronx when people immigrated over. So that's really cool. So, any siblings that played as well, or?
No, none of my siblings, except they all can sing. They all have pretty good voices, but they never really did much with it. I mean, they would sing at parties and stuff like that. My sister Ellen, especially back in the folk days when we were doing folk music, used to like to sing harmonies. But I don't get to see much of her anymore. She's living down in Virginia with her son and grandchildren.
Right.
My dad, though, like I said, my dad played banjo. I played harmonica. He had a chromatic harmonica, and my grandfather played the spoons. So whenever we got together, for the songs, I took the guitar out. My father took out his banjo. My grandfather took the spoons, and we had a little, back everybody up while they sang.
Right. Yeah. And what's neat about that is sometimes you don't recognize the influence you have on the people who are around you. Hey, Uncle Steve got out and took his guitar out, and hey, maybe I can do that, and where it trickles down. I look at my nieces and nephews. One time I had a bunch of harmonicas. They're like 4 or 5 years ago. What the heck did I care? I handed out the harmonicas in every key, and they paraded around the campfire in the backyard, and they had a great time, and it was just kind of a really kind of special moment. What I found interesting about your music is not getting tied into a particular genre, which is exactly what I love, because it really, I think, just opens up the world to a greater audience. Coming into the program, we heard a pretty rockin' tune called Little Rock and Roller. Tell me how that came about. How did the muse strike you to write that tune?
Well, as we age... I was watching a documentary on some of the old rock and roll guys, and I think there's always somebody coming up behind you, and it's a competition. And at a certain point, every musician comes to the end of their career, and the new faces and the new sounds and the new people take their place. So I wanted to write a tune that was in the genre of an old rock and roll tune or an old bluesy type rock and roll tune. But the theme is this guy is coming to the end of his career, and he knows that there's other people coming up behind him, and maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to let it go. So that's basically the idea that I had coming up with the song.
Now circling back and to flip the coin on you as far as someone letting it go, how did you reach that point in your life? So you pick up the guitar, you're self-taught. what struck you to say, I can write music, or I'd like to write music? Where did it really germinate for you? I'm always curious about that.
It's hard to say. I wrote a couple of tunes many years ago that that have gone by the wayside, and rightfully so. I wasn't sure I could, but I had an opportunity to make a CD. I was laid off from my job back in 2004. I was working as a senior business analyst at a Wall Street firm, and I got laid off, and I got a good settlement, and I had money, and so I decided that I was going to try to make a CD, but I didn't necessarily want to have a lot of cover tunes. So my first CD is all originals. So I wrote them in a matter of a couple of years, and even some of them as we were recording, I wrote a one or two more. I was lucky enough to get involved with a great engineer, this guy Bob Stander, who's a legend out on Long Island here. He's won a Grammy, and he helped produce and engineer the album. And he played a lot of the the electric guitar parts. Mm-hmm. He also had access to some great studio musicians. I mean, I've worked with John O'Reilly, who's part of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I've gotten a chance to work with Steve Holley, who was McCartney's drummer on Band on the Run. People of this caliber, horn guys from Levon Helm's bands. He had access. He's been a musician since he was in diapers practically. He toured with the Platters later on in their career, played bass and guitar with them. And he's an old style engineer. He used to record in the days when they used to slice tape and put them together.
Right.
So he gave me some ideas about when we were recording what could it sound like, some ideas about what he could provide as far as guitar stuff. He liked the music, and I had been introduced to him by a good friend of mine, Dave Isaacs, who worked with him previously, and Dave is now making a name for himself down in Nashville. So I was lucky enough to meet up with some really good people early on.
Yeah, and you know what's amazing, and at least I found this in the year that I've been doing the podcast, the networking capabilities just on Long Island of the I always refer to it as the wellspring of talent, and I'm really not going overboard on that because every person I meet, it's just I'm really kind of flabbergasted and amazed. But finding these opportunities and getting introduced to these other musicians is just really kind of good. Now, what year was that your first album that you came out with?
I recorded it through 2004, and I believe it came out in 2005.
2005. Was that Backroads? Was that the album?
Yeah, and that's all original music.
Yeah, so that was really before the age of home recording, really. So you jumped right into the studio and kind of jump started to have these phenomenal players play your music. Yeah. And so going into that, so you can write, you've put songs together enough for a dozen songs, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
And then you I assume you got to trust the guy you're handing it over to. Was it any particular song a lot different than you envisioned when you wrote it as opposed to how it came out on the album? Or was it? Did you lay a foundation to say I really want it to be like this, and then all of a sudden it gets enhanced by the good musicians around you?
Well, I mean, I got reviewed in Newsday for the first CD, and it was called a multi-genre CD because it was. The song "Forever and Always" was quite different than most of the other stuff that was on that CD. And it harkens back to the music that I was listening to when I was a kid, when my mother was doing top 40, listening to all that stuff. It's more like an old pop standard than a rock and roll tune. And I realized that my sensibilities as far as music were concerned touched on folk music, which was my favorite type of music back in the early 60s. I listened to a lot of the rock music. I became a big Grateful Dead fan and stuff in the 60s and 70s. But I ended up doing I've written R&B type stuff, and also the old pop standard type stuff. I just wrote a new one that hasn't been recorded yet called "Would You Change Your Mind," which was actually written to a prompt. Write a song about a question. In 2021, this guy Ben Diamond put together a little Zoom group because it was in the middle of COVID. And every 2 weeks we got a prompt. And I've never been what I call a prolific writer. It takes me a long time to write a song. But I found myself writing songs every 2 weeks. I wrote 19 to 20 songs in 2021 alone. And it was basically based on prompts. You know, I had musical ideas. Different musicians approach their songs different ways. Some people start with the lyrics, and then they try to fit music to the lyrics. For me, it's almost always the music first. I sit around the house and I strum the guitar, and I might have listened to a new jazz tune or a new pop tune or a new folk tune or country tune, and maybe there's a particular chord progression that I said, wow, that really sounds really good. So I'd work on that, and then, you know, throw my own stuff in there, and before I knew it, I had at least the framework for a song, and then I would try to fit lyrics to it. Often I would start off with a phrase, and 7 times out of 10, that phrase disappeared in the course of writing, and it became a different song.
Now, I'm going to ask you this, and this is just from a total novice perspective. When you listen to a song and you say to yourself, I like that chord progression, do you know what that chord progression is at the moment and what key it's in?
No, not necessarily, but Google Google can give you can go out there and you can find the chords for a particular song. Often all I do too is I'll just strum the guitar and I'll come up with a chord I haven't played before. I just put my fingers in a different spot. I like the sound of that. That's really cool. And then I'll find another one, and before you know it, I have 2 or 3 chords that fit well together, that I've never played before, that I've never heard anybody play before, and sometimes a song comes out of that.
Cool. Hey, let's do this. Let's just take a quick break, and when we come back, I want you to think about, since you're a multi-genre artist, when we come back, tell me about some of the influences and the people that you're impressed with in their songwriting. So,
sure.
Hey, everybody, we're here with Steve Robinson, and we'll be right back after a short break. Stick with us. There's so much more to come.
Calling all music enthusiasts, Long Island is a wellspring of talent, and the Long Island Sound Podcast is here to celebrate its vibrant music scene. Tune in to discover the stories behind Long Island's incredible musicians, their creative process, and the iconic venues that make the music come live.
Hey, everybody, we're back with Steve Robinson. Steve, I got to ask you this question. You know, we were talking about all the different careers we both had, and the influence that has on your songwriting. Now that you're not working, quote, the day job, how has it affected your songwriting and your music?
What I've been able to, I have more time now around the house to just fool around on the guitar. And as I mentioned, my songwriting style is generally 99% of the time to start with the music. And the music gives you a groove, it gives you a feel, and then you can fit the words that kind of fit into that. I actually wrote a song about songwriting, and I call it the Muse's Ring. And I kind of compare it to a jeweler putting together a setting and a stone, where you start with the music. And don't worry about the words right now. You're working with the setting, and when the words come, you have to fit them to the setting. You have to fit them to the music, and what you end up with, hopefully, at the end of that process, is a sparkling jewel. That's the goal.
Now, Steve, would you consider yourself as a songwriter what I would categorize as a sole practitioner, or have you moved into, hey, I want to collaborate with somebody on this or that? Have you done that, or is it really, are you a sole practitioner?
I've done some, I'm pretty much solo. I've done a couple of collaborations with other people, but I can't say that they were unsatisfying, but I find myself trying to take over the process, and I know that's not a good way to collaborate, because I've got very specific ideas about what I like and what I want to do, and you've really got to make room for the other person. I do have a couple of other songwriters who I have a tremendous respect for. There's a guy out here there called Hank Stone. I don't know if you know Hank.
I've heard his name.
Hank Stone is a prolific songwriter. He's got really unique, original stuff. And I did a collaboration with him that kind of worked out.
Okay.
But at one point, we had a little parting the ways on how to handle the chorus of a particular song.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. But you did mention, you were talking about during COVID how you wrote a song to a prompt. I don't even know if we recorded it or not, but that I found interesting. And I've talked to other artists who, they'll do songwriting in the round, so to speak, where they're, okay, write a song about a window, was one of them. And, you have 5 people just kind of banging out their individual songs or collaborating. There's a couple ways to do it. So
we had, like I said, Ben Diamond in 2021 came up with a Zoom group called 21 Songs for 2021. And since then, we've had 21 songs for 2022, and we're in the middle now of doing 20 songs for 2023. But prompts such as it was the year of Dylan's 80th birthday, so write a song about him, or in his style, or involving Dylan in some way. So I wrote a song called "The Ragged Clown," which is basically a combination of a chronology of some of the highlights of his career, along with references to song titles or phrases from songs that I tried to fit in such a way is that they didn't stand out as titles or excerpts, but they actually fit into the narrative.
Okay.
But people would recognize them. People
Sure.
would recognize the references. I had great success with that one. The song that I told you about before is the prompt for write a song about a question, and it's another old style, kind of a retro pop love tune called "Would You Change Your Mind?" and the way it starts out is, "Would you change your mind if I could write a song to tell you how I feel?" And I've had a lot of really positive response anytime I've done that tune.
It's interesting. You make me reminisce about, what I talk about is what I love about singer-songwriters is you're able to articulate a lot of the feelings that I cannot articulate in song, and to bring back memories and reminders of how to approach life and stuff like that. I think is a great gift. Now, I got to ask you this, as you're noodling around on the guitar and you're figuring out phrases and stuff like this, are you ever purposeful about it where you say, hey, you know what, this Thursday, I've been noodling with this phrasing. I'm gonna concentrate on writing a song, or is it more haphazard? Now that you have more time to approach it, and I don't want you to give away the secret.
It's happened both ways.
Okay.
I wrote a song called Sandy, which was about the storm that hit New York back in 2012. And like I said, I'm not a prolific writer, and it takes me a long time. I mean, I've had songs that sat in the drawer for years before I could actually finish them. This one I got done in 2 weeks. So this one was, I want to write a song about the storm, and I sat down and I did it. A lot of the other ones are just, they're ideas. I have a little H2 Zoom that I used to use to just get them down, and it could be just a couple of chord changes and maybe a phrase.
Right.
And, I couldn't take it any further. What I found is when I was doing the prompts for 2021, along these songs, I brought back and I was able to finish them because now I had a positive goal, a prompt to write to. And the wording would change, the chording might change a little bit, but a lot of these songs came about and got finished because I had a structure to build them around. It wasn't just, chords and a phrase. I had one song that I wrote about my grandson, Aiden, who's under the spectrum, very bright. And when he was 5 years old, his family lived with us. And I came home one night, and he was sitting on my dining room table in a big cardboard box, surrounded with his stuffed animals.
Okay.
I asked, Aiden, what's going on? And he said, we're going on an adventure.
Beautiful.
And it ended up, I wrote some lyrics, and I did some chords, and it sat in the drawer for years and years and years and years. And finally, a prompt came back. I can't even remember which prompt it was, but I finished that song. I called it Aiden's Ark, and it's about taking off, unfurling the sails in the box, and they're flying off, and they're going to see the other side of the moon just to see what's there, and capturing the stars as fireflies, and Captain Adam, steady at the helm, issues his commands in a language only he and his faithful crew seem to understand, and finish it up with, maybe it's only a child's fantasies can pierce those skies. And the last verse is, let's all take a trip in Aiden's Ark.
Yeah.
Close your mind, open your mind, open your heart, open your minds, close your eyes, and just travel with Barney the bear and Runner the pony, and Snaky who's climbing the mast to set the sails, and Allie's in the crow's nest looking for comet tails. Let's all take a trip in Aiden's Ark.
It's like that Christopher. It's letting that inner Christopher Robinson go that is sometimes buried deep inside us, and sometimes not.
And sometimes it just needs somebody to help you pop the cork.
Yeah.
To get it out.
Yeah, I agree. Like I enjoyed writing essays. I've done more in the past, and I'm feeling a little regret right now. But I remember being inspired by something. We were in Baltimore, and I said, told my wife Deb, I said, "Listen, do you mind driving? Because I got to get this out." And I wrote for 2 hours and just bang something out. And I kind of miss that. I kind of miss letting myself do that. Or maybe I just have to find more things to inspire me, and open up the cork, so to speak,
Yeah, but you need the quiet time to do it. And having now that I'm retired, I did have more time. But I still, there are very prolific periods, and then there are very
dry spells. Yep.
Dry spells. Yeah.
Yeah. What I think it comes down to, and think about Aiden or Hayden. It was
Aiden, Aidan.
So you looked at Aiden. You come and you see him there, and you just asked him a question, and it uncorked the bottle, for you. I would suspect. So it's where am I going with this? It really comes to the ability, I believe, to recognize a story and tell a story, and see where that story takes you, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have it. Okay, it's going to end right here, and Aiden's going to be Peter Pan and whatever. But it's interesting to follow the muse of a situation and put it in song. And now that song's eternal. Even though it may be in the drawer for a couple of years, eventually it'll come to birth and go out there. And that's one of the things about the song, and I kind of did a lead into this, but that song, Old John, and as I'm listening to it, I'm like, wow, this is just a great storytelling song. Maybe you can kind of give me some insights. And you know what? I never ask songwriters, what does this mean? Because I want the audience to bring up whatever it means for them. But how did it come to you, I guess, is my question.
Well, two of my favorite songwriters, Jim Lauderdale and Kevin Welch from Oklahoma.
Okay.
Both wrote songs about outlaws. Jim Lauderdale does a song called Headed for the Hills. And Kevin Welch does a song called Wilson's Tracks about a guy who heads up to the Ozarks, and they go after him, and they're telling him, don't go after this guy. You don't know what you're up for.
Right.
The idea came through from those two songs, and I had a blues riff that I had been playing for a while, and I just didn't have any lyrics for it. But once I heard those two songs, I came to the idea of, why don't I write a song about an outlaw? So that's how it basically. That's the impetus for doing the song.
All right. So let's listen to Old John. We'll be right back after the song. Thanks so much for that, Steve. We'll be right back.
Old Johnny's up and gone, headed for the hills. right, Lord, I'm coming home to you. Now Johnny had a woman, her name was Sarah Stone. She'd been seen around with Vicar Lee. She cursed John to his bones. Sheriff called for a posse. We're bringing old John in. He's killed Vicar Lee, dead as he can be. Got an answer for his sin. But John had a reputation with a pistol and a knife. Not one man raised his hand. He'd surely take our lives. But the sheriff took a double eagle, raised it up on high. I'll put it in the hands of the man who takes him dead or alive. John ran 3 days and nights, boys, up those hills and down, with a posse right behind him, like a fox against the hounds. Twice they had him cornered, so the story goes. Every time the date closed in, he vanished like a ghost. It was down by Jenkins' Corner, they finally brought old John to rest. He had a 44 pistol in his hand, 10 bullets in his chest. Well, it took a posse to bring him down, a dozen men or so. The people say to this very day, it was a woman that laid him low.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with Steve Robinson. We're having a good time. I'm getting a good education about how he's approaching the muse. And sometimes I will, or sometime in the future, I'll take the 1,000 little pieces of songs I have and maybe write a song. Maybe. That's not a threat. I did write one song. It was a parody for my wife's 50th birthday. And I had my 9-year-old daughter, Faith, singing along with me, and we had a ball.
Good.
And just
See, you broke the ice.
Well, I wasn't doing it to write the song. I was really doing it to see the look on my wife's face of horror. Me singing.
There's all kinds of reasons.
Me singing to the family with a microphone. And I'll never forget this. I'm like, one of the things I learned is don't ever do a song when they just put the food out, right?
No.
And I had my God bless my mother-in-law, chewing on something in front of me while I'm singing, saying, "Is this song about me?" So I must have had a horrified look on my face. Anyway, you were telling me, Steve, during the break that you got involved with this contest you're going to be playing. Tell me what's coming up.
I'll probably be appearing with a good friend of mine, Russ Seeger. Russ has got a stellar career on Long Island as a musician. He's played with a lot of great people. He played with Lee Von Helm at one point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so... and he is a unique character. He's got... he's a jokester. So,
all right, he's coming on the podcast. We're gonna rope him right in.
Yeah. I mean, Russ is a really great guy. He's got an oddball sense of humor, and he tells jokes at his shows. He's a great front man.
Nice.
And a great guitar player. We're trying to work out some stuff between now and then for the two of us, because even though I've known him for a long time, we have never really played much together. We've had a couple of sessions here where we've started to get acquainted with each other's music, from a playing standpoint. But I have faith that Russ will be able to pick up anything that I throw at him. I just hope I can pick up what he throws at me.
Well, what's great. It's funny is I love listening to live music when the artist is engaging with the audience, live, because you feel like you're in their living room, so to speak, and you're really part of it. You're not a piece of furniture just taking it in. You're hinting of your excitement and enthusiasm, and you're cheerleading, by having that engagement. So that's really kind of cool when you have somebody who can do that, You were talking about some other festival.
Yeah, there's a festival. It's a one-day music festival that takes place in East Setauket at a place called Benner's Farm, where they have a number of stages. They have a main stage, and then they have a couple of other stages where and the kids come and they have animals, and I believe it's an organic farm, working
neat.
farm. Yeah.
And when is that happening?
I don't have the exact date, but it's probably sometime in the beginning to middle of September.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a specific algorithm to figure out which date they're going to have every year, but I believe it was September 11th last year. So it's probably somewhere around that time. But it was a competition to get on the main stage, and I was fortunate enough to win the competition. Yeah, so
nice. You didn't have to throw him a 20 spot or nothing. It just
nothing like that.
Totally on merit.
Well, let's hope so.
Hey, let's talk about the last song you brought to the table, "Forever and Always." That's off your original album, Backroads. And before you talk about it, I just want to tell our audience you can find Steve's music on Spotify, and as you're listening to the links, when this podcast goes up as a Spotify exclusive, the stream credit goes to the artist, and that's something new at Spotify. So we're happy to promote original live music from the wellspring of talent that's here. So just thought I would throw that in quick. But tell us about "Forever and Always" from your original album.
Well, "Forever and Always" is a bit different than the other songs we've played tonight. This is one of those 3 o'clock in the morning, set 'em up Joe type of songs. It was actually inspired by I not only have I had a lot of careers, but my wife and I have moved in our early years numerous times.
Right.
I've lost track. It's either 12 times in 15 years or 15 times in 12 years. I don't know what it was. But we had boxes that went unpacked for many, 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 many years.
Okay.
And finally, when we settled down, I got to unpack some of those boxes. I found my high school yearbook. And, this is 25, 30 years after the fact. And as I was skimming through my senior year yearbook, in the back where they have all the advertisements, I had forgotten that my high school girlfriend had written me a full-page letter and signed it "Forever and Always," which I thought was kind of ironic because, we'd lost touch. So using that as the title, I decided to write a song about a guy who's lost his love. We don't know if she's left him or if she's passed. The song doesn't really make it clear, but all he knows is that his heart is broken, and he is sitting in the way I usually introduce the song is the guy sitting at the bar with a handful of letters, and it's 3 o'clock, and the bartender wants to close. And this guy finally gets up out of his seat, and the bartender's thinking, finally, he's leaving. I can close this place up and go home. And then he makes a right turn to the jukebox, and the bartender thinks to himself, oh, he's going to play that damn song again. And then I play the song.
Cool. All right. Great introduction. Let's listen to "Forever and Always," and we'll be right back. Check it out, everyone.
I read the letters that you wrote and signed forever and always. The scent of your perfume is almost faded and gone. The whiskey hasn't filled this emptiness inside, so I think I'll buy another round and try to figure out how to turn this lonely life around. This heart out on my sleeve is looking tattered and worn. It's gonna walk these empty streets, just waiting for the dawn. Sleep brings no release, 'cause I dream that I'm with you. But when I wake up, you'll still be gone. I'll be haunted by those words forever and always. I see your face in every corner, I hear your voice in every song. I know I gotta let it go, but I'm just not that strong. Those words of love you sent me, I never can forget, because they're written here on my broken heart, and I know that they will be there forever and always.
Hey everyone, we are back. I don't know why I always say, hey everyone, like I'm calling, hey, attention everyone, we're back, in case you were wondering after the song. That was a great song. Thanks for giving us the lead into it. And you gave me a lot of insights, Steve, into how you approach your music, and I look forward to even listening to your music more now that I've got to know you a little bit. And that's the whole goal of this podcast, as I look to cure my curiosity of, gee, what's the story with that guy who's singing up on stage, So you've given us a little glimpse into your history, and I invite everybody to discover you, not only in this podcast, but through your music. I think you'll find it to be great music. So
thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to talk to whoever wants to listen.
And I think we're going to get a lot of people who are going to want to listen. Steve, thanks always for being here. I look forward to having you back, as new music comes out so we can tell the masses about what to expect from Steve Robinson. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, brother. Till next time. Take care, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace.